Good evening, TikTok. It was requested that I do a video regarding spinning wheels and, in particular, what to look out for when you are purchasing a used or, in particular, an antique spinning wheel, as a lot of new spinners end up looking at because they don't have, like, I have connections within the spinning world. So I get notifications from my guild when, there's a used spinning wheel up for sale in my area, because that's what we do. We share that information when we get it. Most of the time when you are looking like antique shops, or you see one that's out in the wild, basically, what you will typically find is something like this wheel. So this is a Saxony style wheel. This particular one was built in the 1850s. And I know that because the gentleman that I bought it from had dated it based on the style and the type of wood and the patina on the wood. Now, first thing you want to look for when you are buying a spinning wheel that is an antique, you want to make sure that the spinning wheel has one of these. This is your flyer, okay? This is what makes the wheel actually spin the yarn. If the spinning wheel doesn't have the flyer, or if it has the flyer and it's just missing this whirl piece, either way, don't buy it. If you are looking for a wheel that actually works, it is not worth it to purchase a wheel that does not have a flyer or the whirl. Another nice thing to find with a wheel is if it has a spare bobbin, especially with these antiques. Usually they only come with one bobbin, okay? Now, at some point there might have been more bobbins, but they've been lost over the years or they've been destroyed. If it doesn't have a bobbin, you probably don't want to buy it, because it's going to be very difficult for a woodworker to recreate a bobbin just from the flyer assembly. So want to have a flyer, want to have a bobbin. Another thing I would look for on these flyers to kind of weed out the decorator wheels, if you look really, really closely right here, you can see that there's this groove, and there's actually several grooves. And that is where, over time, this wheel, the yarn actually wore a groove into the wood where people were spinning on it. A wheel that's just a decorator wouldn't have that, because it's not worth it for them to put that in there. It's not worth it. They're not going to do it. Another thing to look for. So most of these antique wheels, can't see it very well, but they have this little peg on the end. So this peg is actually attached to a wooden screw, and that wooden screw is running through the base here, and it runs underneath and actually attaches to this whole assembly right here. So when I screw that, this whole assembly shifts back and forth. So if I go this way, I'm loosening my tension. If I go this way, I'm tightening my tension. So another thing to check for is, does that actually move? Is there actually a wooden screw in here that makes that whole assembly move? Because if it's a decorator, they wouldn't have gone to the effort to make a wooden screw to go into this and make it move. So if it doesn't move, and it doesn't, like, you can't see a little gap down in here where a wooden screw would be. Like, if you look really, really closely right down in there, you can kind of see there's a gap there, and there is a wooden screw down in there. If you can't see that on the spinning wheel that you're looking at buying, that's an antique, I wouldn't buy it, because that probably is a decorator. They did a lot of those in the 1950s. Things that you may see that are broken or missing on your spinning wheel, but that are okay. So you may notice that this little peg is missing. That's common. They got broken. They got lost. All that is for is to hold the wheel actually in place. And what I would do when I'm traveling with this wheel is I pull the peg and the wheel will actually come off. Now, another thing that might be missing, your wheel may not have a distaff like this one. Okay, this is not original to this wheel. The gentleman that refurbished it made this to go with this wheel because it did have a peg. It did have a hole for a distaff to go in, but there was no distaff. Another thing that might be broken is the treadle. This might be broken, or it may be just pulled out of the legs because there are metal pegs down here, sometimes metal or wood pegs that are holding that into the legs. That might be broken, it might be gone, but that is relatively easy for them to replace. Another thing that might be missing would be the footman. So this is the footman. All that this is it's a wooden, a thin wooden, it's just a piece of thin wood, and it connects my treadle up to my wheel here. And this is what makes the wheel go when I treadle. So if I'm treadling, it makes the wheel go. Okay. Now, something else that I would say, if it's not there, probably don't buy it. If this piece here is gone, if it's not there, don't buy that spinning wheel for you to use, because trying to replace this also, if one of the legs is missing, like if this one had been missing, okay, if you have the other one, the woodworker can usually use the other one as a template and make another one. Okay. Again, leather pieces like this, they frequently have deteriorated and are broken, or they are gone completely. A good woodworker or somebody who knows what they're doing with a spinning wheel should be able to replace these. All that these are is leather. That's it. That's all that these pieces are, is leather. But again, if the whole thing is missing, I absolutely would not buy that spinning wheel. But if like one little piece, like if the front piece is missing or if the back piece is missing, that's okay. You can probably replace that. If the wooden screw itself is missing, again, I wouldn't buy it, because it's probably going to be a bigger problem for the woodworker to replace that wooden screw without the original there to use as a template. A good woodworker should be able to do it, but it's one of those things. What do you want to spend your money on? So again, no flyer, no bobbin, don't buy it. If this doesn't move, don't buy it. Unless you can confirm that there is a wooden screw in here that just needs repaired. If this entire assembly is missing, don't buy it. If you're only missing one piece, or like the leather pieces are busted, that's fine. So and again, I may be completely missing a few things to look for with these decorator items. So this is not, I don't consider this to be a complete overview of what to look out for, but those are some things that most of the time the decorator people wouldn't have done, is to make it usable. Another thing to look for on the wheels is some spinning wheels will have the name of the maker on them. This wheel doesn't have the name of a maker on it. It's neither here nor there. Not every wheel is going to have a signature on it, if you will. Now, this wheel may not have a signature on it, but my great wheel does. So if you look right here, this is the signature, and it's a little hard to read, but this particular gentleman who made this wheel, my great wheel, was a known wheel maker, meaning that he made more than one spinning wheel. But yeah, that's all the advice I have for you as far as picking out an antique spinning wheel. Also, if the big wheel is broken, this piece, if it's broken, don't bother. It's not worth it. If it's just like a little wobbly, like if it's warped a little bit, that's fine. You can have a wheel that's pretty warped and it'll still run. Drive bands are replaceable, so that's not a big deal. But yeah, if any of y'all have any other questions, or you see something that you have a question about on this wheel, let me know. Have a good evening. I will see you on live later.